Welcome to the Home Building Hub, your essential podcast guide to building your new home. Hosted by industry experts Colin Bischoff and Darren Brennan, this conversational podcast will help better educate you about all things new home building so you can avoid costly mistakes and enjoy your building experience to the fullest, no matter which home builder you choose.
Hey there, folks. Welcome to the Home Building Hub. You are with Colin and co-host Darren Brennan as always. And today, Darren, let's cover what we would consider the most popular topic we've had so far, but we did it quite a while ago, mate. So we're going to sort of rebadge it and make it relevant to 2025 at the time of recording this. So we are going to cover today, guys, the top 3 things that buyers do not consider when building. Very, very popular topic. And ready to roll, Daz. How you going?
Mate, going well. It's pretty bloody bleak outside though in Ballarat. It's the coldest day of the year so far, mate. I actually expected snow. I woke up and I'm like, I wonder. I could hear a bit of rain. Thought maybe that's washed away. There was no snow, but I sent the dogs outside, for their morning startup, and they came back in very, very quickly. Let me tell you, They jumped into bed with my wife, and here we are sitting and recording, mate. So happy days.
A little frosty. We nudged a 0 and a 1 last week in sunny Gisborne, where I live. So that was needed a scarf, needed some gloves for the morning stroll. That's for sure. So
and a chisel to get the ice off the windscreen.
Yeah. It was, we are here. It has arrived. I feel like winter's been here. While anyone listening in Queensland will be like, yeah, you guys, why do you live there?
But yeah, true.
I feel like it's been around for a few weeks already before winter actually
turned pretty quick, though. It was really nice, and now it's turned ugly. So anyway, that's okay.
Anyway.
We'll see the sun in September.
We digress. So as I said at the top, we sort of reviewed all the most popular episodes. We're up to episode 102 right now. So we've been doing this a couple of years now, Daz. So we thought, it's a couple of popular ones. Let's get them back on track, make them relevant to today, because a lot has changed since we recorded those ones. And previously we'd done a top 5 things that people don't consider. We've sort of updated that, Darren. Let's cover the top 3 things. This will be really helpful for anyone at the start of that process to help you with budgeting and things like that. So I think you can kick off number 1, Daz. Let's do it.
Well, mate, you just said it. So budgeting's number 1, and budgeting for unknown and unforeseen costs, I guess. So there's a few different elements to this one. The first one will be tied back to your finance. So, you really need a 5% deposit for the home and a 5% deposit for the land. And it may be that you even require more. The land developer may require you to actually have a 10% deposit, for example. So all of a sudden, you're up for a little bit more money than what the bank says. So the bank says they might lend you 95%, but the land developer's wanting a bigger chunk of that pie. So already you could be up for a little bit more. Plus you've got conveyancer fees, stamp duty if you're not exempt from that. So there are some exemptions to that. You've got land transfer fees. So these are just other things that sort of add to that pile. And then you've got lender's mortgage insurance if you're borrowing above 80%. Again, depends on whether you're eligible for the government schemes or not. So all these things sort of touch on that. And then you've got things during the construction stage. So, for example, some builders allow for rock and have a no-cost rock policy. Others will charge you for the rock that's on the site. So, again, items like that you need to be aware of. Re-establishment survey of your land if the pegs are missing. We always say go and check the pegs are there before settlement to make sure that, there's no surprises, prior to going to site. Cleaning your block, you need to sort of allow for some of those things. So, there's quite a few items in there that you need to consider. I know you've got a few more to add to the list, Cole.
Yeah, so I think the general items, so obviously there's finance related things, and what you just sort of covered there to on the tail end of that was more understanding some of the things that are excluded as opposed to included. Like you said, with the turnkey items and rock and those sorts of things, clearing your site. But I think general, like landscaping is one that people don't really budget for. Landscaping, it could be 6 to 12K depending on where you're at, what size block you've got. Fencing itself is a bit of a challenge for some. It could be 3 to 5K to allow for. And window covering, so getting blinds done, is something that not all builders are putting in your quote. Another, it could be $2,000, it could be five. It depends, obviously, but it's in the thousands. Utility connections, like obviously paying to connect for the internet after you've moved in, paying for the bills during construction, also for electricity. The connection fees are quite high, a couple of grand with some builders. It can be depending on their setup, but also you got to pay the bills for some along the way as well, Daz. So it could be 2 or 3 or 4 grand by the time you're said and done. So that's something to consider, and also building inspections. If you're going to get one of them or all of them done in terms of the stage inspections, that could cost you, $800 to $1,000 per inspection. Depends. They might give you a deal across doing multiple or several. But these are things that you have to identify up front. People get stuck in this, the excitement of the floor plan and all the inclusions and the cosmetics, but you do need to be like pragmatic about, okay, these are the other things I need to consider. But they're probably the general items, Daz, that we would say that most people neglect, I
Yep.
suppose, in a way, or probably don't treat seriously enough at the front end in terms of their budgeting process. So you sort of covered the exclusions pretty well already. So
Yeah, I mean, I think there are some there, build over easements, for example, or, one that comes up all the time at the moment, Cole, we see is a sewer tie cutback. So you're building really close to the easement and the sewer connection point is outside the easement and too close to the home. And again, as blocks get smaller and houses, people are trying to still get the biggest house on there. Some of these items become a concern. Retaining walls. I don't know, for example, you guys do turnkey a lot more than we do. So retaining walls are involved a lot more, whereas, we let people, depending on the job, sometimes I'll do it after handover, their own retaining walls, or they sort of bench their own block. But if you're doing the landscaping as a builder, you want to have a nice flat platform generally to be able to landscape, put some paths and stuff in. And again, those retaining walls come at additional costs. So all these little bits and pieces, TV antenna would be another one that's often not included, or a letterbox and a clothesline. And, so there's all these little bits and pieces along the way. I think most builders these days are doing toilet roll holders and towel rails, but not all.
yeah,
So again, it's just another one to add to the list. Some include a driveway, some don't. Some don't even include concrete to your porch area. So you're literally stepping from mud into the home. So all these things need to be sort of budgeted for at some point. So you're either going to pay for them through your builder, or you're going to have a little bit of a slush fund afterwards that you need to cover the cost of these items, or pay for them over time as you save the money. But yeah, it certainly can come as a bit of a surprise, I guess. And that's what we're really trying to highlight is, ask as many questions as possible around those sort of items.
yeah, definitely. Our advice many times is don't only understand your inclusions, ask about and understand your exclusions. That's so
Yeah,
important. That will flush out those things. It's not someone's trying to
absolutely.
hide them from you. It's just that they just expect that you would read what's included and understand it, but quite often that's not the case because it's a confusing, complex and detailed process to buy a house. So definitely cover those. With the retaining walls, that's a good one. We actually come across that a lot, Darren, where because we're doing the landscaping, we actually put in quite a substantial amount of money for retaining walls. It could be, 5 to 10 to 12 to sometimes 15 grand. And the builder who's not doing landscaping, they don't include that because they don't
Yeah.
really need to. But you, as a buyer, you don't really think about it. You think, oh, I'll just get some landscaping done. It'll cost me 5 grand. Really, the reality is, if you want it done properly, to level things out, put retaining walls in, all that sort of stuff, then it could actually cost you 15 to 20 grand. So we actually get stung on that a lot when people compare our pricing to other ones. So
And you often also, Colin, I've got a friend who I reckon they've lived in their house for 8 or 10 years now, and they need retaining walls. They've never done them, and so that whole side of their house has never been touched. It's like a jungle because it's a big cost if you're not, if you're trying to get it done, and then you don't know how you want it to look, and you go through all this debate. Well, they've
yeah,
got literally the entire side of their home that's never been looked at. And I'd be scared to go out there. You may never come back.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's important. I mean, I am biased, I suppose, but the benefit of having a turnkey product is that we plan not only for landscaping, for the house as well,
Yeah.
in combination of where it's going to be cut, at what level, and things like that, factoring in landscaping, not just the build. So I think it's
And
important. Yeah.
And again, depending on, landscaping's a great one. I worked in the garden industry for many, many years, so I understand it really well. And you can do a really nice landscape yourself if you're trying to do it on the cheap, and understand that you can buy small plants and they often grow quite big over time. So, you don't have to go and buy $150, $200 plant. You can buy a $5 or $10 plant and it'll grow to be as big as $150 plant. You just got to take time and be patient, right? Same, you can lay turf or you can lay seed. Seed's much cheaper, obviously. So you can certainly do it on a more cost effective basis. We talk about doing retaining walls with sleepers and stuff. You might have rocks on your block and you can place rocks to form a retaining wall and also look really good too. So depending on what you're going to do and if you're going to do it yourself, you've got those options. But understand that, again, you're right, Cole, if you're going to get someone in to do it, you're not going to get change out of $5,000. There's no way. But if you do it yourself, you might be able to do it for 2 or 3, right? Maybe even less, but you're not going to have as complete a product, I guess. And you've got to be able to have the skills and the tools and stuff to be able to do it. Not everyone's got that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's horses for courses, and work out what works for you. And as I say, you can certainly grow plants. You can go to your grandma's place and get a few cuttings and try and grow those, and all that stuff can be fun as well. And again, from my background, I really enjoy that stuff, but not everyone's going to go, what the heck is a cutting? How's that work? So yeah, and it depends on what you want and what sort of garden you're looking for. But again, getting a turnkey, it's simple. That's the key. It's the simplicity of being able to move in and just enjoy it straight away, and not go through sometimes months or years of working your way through that. But yeah.
Yeah, quite often we have people take us up on turnkey, understanding it's not a nice, basic, convenient, simple, sort of product, and then they go and adjust it. They would put in some more plants or whatever it may be.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of people do that because it's like, well, the groundwork, the foundation's done. It looks pretty good. Now they just take it to that next level themselves. That's not uncommon as well.
Yeah. So, and if you're an investor, have you really got the time? Is it something you can be bothered with? You might save a few bucks, but then you miss out on weeks of rent because you get there every weekend to try and do it. It took longer than you expected. And
my experience is, Darren, you will not save the money. The rate that our turnkey builders get is far beyond what you could ever even think of.
Yeah, you wonder how they're making money, these landscapers doing it, to be fair.
I don't know, because they're doing it by volume. So you, as someone who rolls up to Bunnings and gets all the things individually, and then the tools to do it as well, like you're not going to beat that price.
Yeah.
But people think that they will. They always tell us that. But the truth is, not going to happen.
Yeah, agree.
Anyway, so number 1, yes, budgeting, unknown, unforeseen costs we've covered. So finance and general items, understanding your exclusions as much as your inclusions. Number 3, Darren, is neglecting important design and floor plan items. So number 1 in that list there is orientation is hugely important. We see this every single day, people refusing to listen. Where your living areas are, where your north point is on your block, it matters. The sunlight that's coming through your house, you want to make sure is coming through the side that you are happy for it to come through. Most commonly and most obviously, that would be the living areas in the afternoon. You want it to jet through there rather than having a very dark section of living space and all your bedrooms light and bright in the afternoon because you won't be in there. So continually we get this it doesn't matter sort of mentality with clients, because I think it's about tangibility. You can't see it, so therefore it doesn't really matter. So I'm just reinforcing that one. That's one we didn't cover last time, Darren, a couple of years back. So orientation.
I think one on that, Cole, is also understand that if you get your orientation wrong and the house no longer meets 7-star, then you could be up for additional money for, again, depending on the inclusions of your builder. It could be for double glazing if they don't already included all windows. It could be for additional insulation. It could be reducing window sizes in some of these areas to try and reduce the heat loss, particularly on the south side of your home. So, sometimes your design elements come into big time play there. And, the whole aim is to reduce your need for heating and cooling as much as possible. And, because it's burning, right now fossil fuels, but it's burning energy, and they're trying to reduce the opportunity that you need to do that as often. So it can come at a costly exercise if you get your orientation wrong.
So please pay attention, ask the question, and make sure your design suits your block. The second section within, I guess, this third topic, Darren, is electricity plans or electrical plans and layouts. Really take the time to review that. And like we've said in previous podcasts, don't take 3 weeks. Just take a few hours to go through it. Make sure it's practical. Make sure that you've got enough PowerPoints and the switches of where lights are switched on. Make sure they're all in the right spots that you think about living in that house. Make sure you've got enough PowerPoints. Make sure the height of PowerPoints is double checked. It's really important. So make sure you've got a PowerPoint in an ensuite just on the left or the right of you to plug something in. And if it's a master ensuite with a double vanity, make sure there's one on the right and on the left. Quite often we just have one on the right or the left, and then you've got your partner coming over to your side because there's only one PowerPoint. Things like that are so inexpensive, but they cost you it's just a pain in the backside, Darren. So
for sure,
please review those. Put a PowerPoint in if you've got a walk-in pantry, maybe for an appliance in there, or particularly a broom cupboard, pop one in there for your vacuum. Most importantly, as I said, check the height of these PowerPoints because people miss that all the time. Location of downlights, same sort of, I guess, thing is make sure they're in the right spot. Make sure you've got enough. A lot of builders provide downlights, but it's only up to a certain amount.
Yeah.
So don't be the one that misses out on understanding, okay, these are the rooms that get them and these are the ones that don't. So that's probably the third one.
4 or 5 downlights extra in the home, you'd be surprised what a difference it makes. One over every vanity, an extra couple in your kitchen, and all of a sudden the place is lit up so much better. There's not these, shaded points. You won't regret it. When you get that stuff right, you sort of look back and go, gee, I'm glad I did that, know.
It won't burn your budget either.
No,
they're pretty small. In the hundreds, not the thousands, those sort of tweaks. And then in neglecting important design and floor plan items, Darren, that's orientation, electrical layout. You can cover us on the last one?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the last one is, people making structural changes, and everyone seems to want, and I've never seen it so much, Colin, and, in our case, we've got over 100 designs. It's not like we've got a shortage of floor plans. We've got 2 to choose from, A or B. We've got 100. And I've never seen so many people wanting to make design changes. And what we see is when they do so, often that they're resulting in living areas becoming smaller and smaller. And then, they're trying to add more and more into this house and make all these changes because Uncle Gary thinks it's a great idea. Old man Uncle Gary again, he's back. And Uncle Gary, for those who don't know, is that advisor you've got that's always trying to tell you what to do, and it not necessarily an expert, And so these house designs, they're designed by architects and draftspeople who are experienced in getting that stuff right. So the standard floor plan, for the most part, is going to be the most effective floor plan. So understand what that is, and whilst trying to get some of those changes done, you want to be making sure you're getting the right advice, and that as I say, they're designed by architects, and I'm sure Uncle Gary's not one. So be mindful of what that's like. The other part is if you get a chance to have a wander through, certainly a display home or a house under construction to see what it feels like. So you get an idea of that and understand if you get that wrong, what is it going to look like? So, if you need to measure it out so you get an idea of the size of the space. I always talk about in my very early days in this industry, and I was living in one side of Melbourne. I drove all the way to Hillsville to meet a customer early on a Saturday morning at about 8:30. So I left home at 6:30 in the morning, and I got to Hillsville to show them this house. And the people had decided in the middle of their meals area to put a 2 by 2 metre study. And I couldn't believe what they'd done, and I had no idea until I arrived that that's what they'd actually done, Colin. I brought these people into the house. They looked at me, laughed at me, and walked out and said, "We wouldn't be building with you if you've let someone do that." And it wasn't my customer, but it was certainly by the builder I was working for back then. And these mistakes are made often.
Yeah.
And you don't realise those mistakes until you get the keys or halfway through construction. It can't be changed then. So, just make sure that you're not making any silly mistakes when you're trying to make all these structural changes because, I'm not an architect. I'm very good at designing homes, but I'm not an architect. So our design team's always better at it than I am. And it's amazing. You think, gee, I got this right. And you go show the design team and they go, bit of a shimmy, and you're like, oh my God, it's so much better already. They just get it better than we do. And Cole, you're likewise got years of experience. And again, the design team usually gets it better than we do. So
in our case, we don't have a design. We are the design team a lot of the case. So I would say I would have done thousands of these
100%.
before. And the amount of times I'm saying probably every single week I get something from the sales team. So here's what the client wants to achieve. And I've learned not to say no, because if that's the way they wanted it, we've had people leave us and go to another builder who will do it. And I'm in principle saying you should not do that because it's a freaking horrible idea. You will never be able to resell that house. And here's all the reasons why. And they're like, it's water off a duck's back. They do not listen. So I've accepted that.
But
I
Uncle
can't
Gary
change
said,
their mind. I have to just, accommodate their request but put it in dot point as to why I think that's a terrible idea. I would say it a little more professionally but it is a terrible idea. So not saying don't make changes, do it within the realm of what the builder allows, but please be practical. And if you're going to make changes that impact a living room, like we have one this week, they've reduced their living room to 3 meters by 3.5 to fit in an extra toilet. Like,
that old saying, you could swing a cat in that room, you can't in that one.
It's a bedroom. Like,
it's a smaller sized bedroom too. 3 meters is smaller. It's still workable, but it's smaller. Logical. It's not a big bedroom.
So that actually, you can tell it frustrates me. Like, these people are making the wrong decision, and we're trying to help you. But anyway, what I'm saying in that case is get the measuring tape out and actually physically set that out and walk around in it and understand what dimensions you've got. Would definitely be something to double check in the spirit of the top 3 things that buyers don't consider when building a new home. So that wraps it up, Daz.
Mate, awesome. Hope everyone enjoys that episode.
Cool. Well, hopefully that helps, guys. I'm sure it will. And thank you very much for watching or for listening. If you have topic ideas, please let us know. Just jump on the website, homebuildinghub.com.au. And please, as always, give us a 5-star review because that helps. It helps get the podcast out to more people and pop up on their feed. So that would be really, really helpful and we'd be grateful. Other than that, we'll see you guys on the next one.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the Home Building Hub. As part of the podcast, we have to be a little careful to cover ourselves on a legal standpoint. So we do have a disclaimer. Whilst we're all about providing value to you, this podcast should not be considered legal or financial advice. It does contain general information only, and you should seek out independent professional advice on your own personal situation before you make any legal or financial decisions.
1,